Captain Valerius Thorn stared out at the swirling canvas of the Tylos Nebula, his face etched with a weariness that belied his 40 standard years. The bridge of the Star Wanderer, his vessel, was dimly lit, casting long shadows that danced with the ethereal glow of the nebula outside. He ran a hand through his thinning brown hair, a gesture that had become almost involuntary during the long stretches of deep space exploration. "Anything, Jax?" he asked, his voice a low rumble that barely disturbed the quiet hum of the ship. "Still analyzing, Captain," came the reply from the navigator's station. Jax, barely out of his teens, was a prodigy when it came to spatial anomalies. His fingers danced across the console, his eyes darting between the holographic displays. "The energy signature is unusual. It's not natural, that's for sure. It's almost artificial." Thorn leaned forward, his interest piqued. The Star Wanderer was an exploratory vessel, tasked with charting unknown regions of space and cataloging any anomalies they encountered. Discovering an artificial energy source in a previously unexplored nebula was a significant find. "Dr. Nova, your thoughts?" Thorn directed his attention to the chief science officer, Dr. Lyra Nova, who was engrossed in her own array of sensors. Lyra was a force of nature, her brilliance matched only by her unwavering determination. Her dark hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and her piercing blue eyes reflected the intensity of her focus. "The signature is unlike anything I've ever seen, Captain," Lyra said, her voice laced with a mixture of excitement and caution. "It's radiating on multiple frequencies, almost as if it's trying to communicate. But the language, it's completely alien. I'm running it through our translation matrix, but so far, nothing." "Could it be a trap?" Thorn asked, his hand instinctively moving towards the sidearm holstered at his hip. "Possibly," Lyra conceded, "but the energy readings indicate the source is inactive. It's as if whatever created the signal is no longer present." "I got something, Captain," Jax announced, his voice filled with a newfound urgency. "I've pinpointed the source of the signal. It's coming from a derelict ship hidden deep within the nebula." Thorn raised an eyebrow. A derelict ship in this uncharted territory. It was highly unlikely. "Can you get a visual?" Jax tapped a few keys, and a holographic image materialized in the center of the bridge. It showed a vessel unlike anything Thorn had ever seen. Its hull was sleek and alien, its design defying any known principles of spacecraft engineering. It was covered in strange markings and appeared to be heavily damaged, drifting aimlessly within the nebula. "What is it?" Thorn murmured, his eyes fixed on the image. "Unknown origin, Captain," Lyra replied. "The ship's architecture doesn't match any known civilization in our database. It's ancient." As they observed the derelict ship, a sudden, piercing alarm blared through the Star Wanderer, throwing the bridge into a state of controlled chaos. Red lights flashed, and the ship's automated systems went into high alert. "Report," Thorn barked, his voice cutting through the noise. "Emergency alert, Captain," Jax shouted over the din. "We're detecting a massive energy signature approaching at high warp speed. It's a human battleship." Thorn's blood ran cold. A human battleship this far out in uncharted space. It didn't make sense. The nearest UEF patrol was light years away. "Identify the vessel," he ordered, his mind racing. "Unable to comply, Captain," Jax replied, his fingers flying across the console. "The energy signature is interfering with our sensors. But the size, it's definitely a battleship, and it's heading straight for us." Lyra turned to Thorn, her eyes wide with concern. "Captain, I'm picking up a distress signal from the derelict ship. It's faint, but it's there. It's as if the arrival of the battleship has triggered something." Thorn knew they were walking into a situation far more complex and dangerous than they had initially anticipated. A derelict alien ship, a mysterious distress signal, and now a human battleship on a collision course. Something big was about to happen, and the Star Wanderer was right in the middle of it. He gripped the arms of his command chair, his gaze hardening with resolve. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers," he commanded, his voice steady. "And get me a direct line to that battleship. I want to know what they're doing out here." The chase was on, leaving everyone on the Star Wanderer wondering what fate had in store for them. Admiral Callan Vance stood ramrod straight on the bridge of the UEF battleship Aurora, his steely gray eyes fixed on the approaching derelict. Decades of service had etched lines into his face, each one a testament to battles fought and sacrifices made. He was a man of unwavering resolve, a bulwark against the unknown dangers lurking in the vastness of space. "Report, Volkov," he barked, his voice resonating with authority. Lieutenant Commander Rena Volkov, his second-in-command, turned from her console, her expression a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. "Admiral, the Star Wanderer has identified the vessel as derelict of unknown origin. They're detecting a distress signal, but the language is unidentifiable." Vance frowned. "A distress signal? From a derelict ship in this sector? That's highly improbable." He glanced at the tactical display, which showed the Star Wanderer positioned cautiously near the alien vessel. "Their sensors are primitive. Run a full spectrum scan, Volkov. I want to know everything about that ship before we get any closer." "Aye, Admiral," Volkov replied, her fingers flying across the console. The Aurora was a technological marvel, equipped with the most advanced sensors and weaponry in the UEF fleet. Within moments, a detailed analysis of the derelict ship began to populate the main display. "The ship's hull is composed of an unknown alloy," Volkov reported. "It's incredibly dense and resistant to energy weapons. The internal structure is bizarre. It doesn't conform to any known principles of engineering." "What about the distress signal?" Vance pressed. "It's originating from the ship's central core. I'm attempting to decrypt it, but the language is unlike anything in our database. It's almost mathematical, Admiral. As if it were designed for machines, not organic beings." As Volkov worked to decipher the signal, Vance studied the image of the derelict ship. Its alien design hinted at a civilization far older and more advanced than humanity. He felt a sense of unease, a premonition that this discovery was more significant than they realized. Suddenly, a new voice filled the bridge, synthesized and ethereal. "Greetings, Starfarers. I am Siler. I have been awaiting your arrival." Vance spun around, his hand instinctively reaching for his sidearm. "Identify yourself," he demanded. "I am an AI construct, a guardian of this vessel and its knowledge. My creators are long gone, but their legacy remains. I possess fragments of their history, their warnings, and their hopes." Volkov's eyes widened in disbelief. "An AI? On a ship this old? It's impossible." "Nothing is impossible, Commander Volkov," Siler replied, its voice echoing through the bridge. "Especially in the vastness of the cosmos. My creators were masters of technology, capable of feats that your species can only dream of." Vance lowered his hand, his mind racing. An advanced AI, dormant for millennia, containing the secrets of a lost civilization. It was an opportunity beyond comprehension, but also a potential threat of unimaginable magnitude. "What is this warning you speak of, Xylar?" Vance asked, his voice carefully controlled. "A looming cosmic threat," Siler replied. "A force that devours civilizations and consumes entire galaxies. My creators called it the Colossus." The name sent a chill down Vance's spine. He had heard whispers of such a threat, ancient legends passed down through generations of UEF commanders. But he had always dismissed them as folklore, cautionary tales to keep soldiers in line. "The Colossus is not merely a weapon," Siler continued. "It is a living entity, a being of pure destruction. It is drawn to sources of energy, to centers of civilization, and now it is drawn to you." Vance turned to Volkov, his expression grim. "Alert all ships, Volkov. Raise shields and prepare for immediate departure. This is no longer a salvage operation. This is a race against time. As the Aurora powered up its engines, preparing to flee the nebula, Vance knew that humanity had stumbled upon something far greater and more dangerous than they could have ever imagined. The echoes of the ancients had awakened, and the Colossus was coming. The fight for survival was about to begin. Econ, a name whispered with a mix of fear and grudging respect in the fringes of known space, squinted at the swirling nebula through the viewport of the Marauder. His face, a roadmap of scars and cybernetic enhancements, was set in a permanent scowl. Greed and a thirst for adventure were the driving forces behind his every action. He ran a calloused hand over the worn grip of his plasma pistol, his eyes glinting with anticipation. "What's the hold-up, Syrah?" he growled, his voice a gravelly rasp. Syrah, his second-in-command, a lean and deadly woman with a cybernetic eye that glowed with an eerie blue light, turned from her console. "We're approaching the anomaly, Econ. The energy readings are off the charts. It's like nothing I've ever seen." "Anomaly, or payday?" Econ chuckled, a harsh, mirthless sound. "Word on the grapevine is that there's a derelict ship out here, ripe for the taking. And where there's a derelict, there's usually something worth salvaging." "There's also a UEF battleship," Sarah reminded him, her tone laced with caution. "The Aurora. It arrived on the scene a few hours ago. They're not going to take kindly to scavengers like us." Econ spat on the deck. "The UEF. Let them play hero. We're just here to make a living. Besides," he added with a predatory grin, "a little competition never hurt anyone." The Marauder, a heavily modified freighter bristling with scavenged weaponry, emerged from warp, its sensors immediately picking up the presence of the Star Wanderer, the Aurora, and the derelict alien vessel. Well, Econ murmured, his eyes scanning the scene. "Looks like we're not the only ones interested in this little prize." He activated the ship's communication system, broadcasting a coded message to the other vessels. "This is the Marauder, requesting permission to approach. We're here for salvage rights on the derelict vessel." The Aurora responded almost immediately, its voice cold and authoritative. "This is Admiral Vance of the UEF battleship Aurora. This sector is under UEF jurisdiction. You are ordered to stand down and await further instructions." Econ laughed. "Jurisdiction? Out here? You're a long way from home, Admiral. Finders keepers, that's the rule of the void." He cut the connection and turned to Syrah. "Prepare for boarding. I want a team on that derelict ship within the hour, and keep an eye on the Aurora. I don't trust those UEF types." As the Marauder moved towards the derelict, its scanners detected a faint, almost imperceptible energy pulse emanating from the alien vessel. "What is it?" Econ asked, his curiosity piqued. "I'm not sure," Syrah replied. "It's like a warning, as if the ship is trying to tell us something." Suddenly, a synthesized voice filled the bridge, echoing through the ship's comm system. "Intruders. You are not welcome here. The Colossus approaches. Flee while you still can." Econ frowned. "The Colossus? What the hell is that?" "I don't know," Syrah admitted. "But whatever it is, it doesn't sound good." As they debated the warning, a massive energy signature appeared on the sensors, dwarfing even the Aurora. A dark shadow began to coalesce in the distance, a terrifying presence that seemed to warp the very fabric of space. "By the void," Econ whispered, his bravado fading. "What is that thing?" The Colossus was unlike anything they had ever seen. A colossal structure of unknown origin, radiating immense power. It was a weapon of unimaginable destruction, a harbinger of cosmic annihilation. The race to plunder the derelict alien ship has just turned into a frantic fight for survival, something Econ and his crew may not be prepared for. The bridge of the Aurora was a whirlwind of controlled chaos. Alarms blared intermittently, and the crew moved with a practiced efficiency, their faces grim but determined. Admiral Vance stood at the command console, his steely gaze fixed on the Colossus, a monstrous silhouette against the backdrop of the nebula. "Report," he barked, his voice barely audible above the din. "Shields at 60% and dropping, Admiral," Volkov shouted. "Their energy weapons are tearing through our defenses." "Evasive maneuvers," Vance ordered. "And keep those disruptor fields active. We need to buy time for the Star Wanderer to finish their analysis." Meanwhile, aboard the Marauder, Econ watched the unfolding battle with a mixture of awe and apprehension. The Colossus was a force of nature, capable of obliterating anything in its path. He knew that if it turned its attention to his ship, they wouldn't stand a chance. "Sira, what are our options?" he asked, his voice unusually subdued. "We can try to run," Sira replied, "but it'll catch us. Our best bet is to stay close to the Aurora. Let them take the brunt of the attack." Econ nodded, his mind racing. He wasn't a hero, but he wasn't a coward either. He knew that if the Colossus wasn't stopped, it would eventually consume everything, including him and his crew. Back on the Star Wanderer, Lyra Nova and her team were working feverishly, their fingers flying across the consoles. The data from the derelict ship was pouring in, revealing fragments of the Colossus's history and its weaknesses. "I've got it," Lyra exclaimed, her eyes shining with excitement. "The Colossus is vulnerable to high-frequency sonic waves. If we can generate a concentrated burst, we might be able to disrupt its energy field." "Can we do that?" Thorne asked, his voice filled with hope. "We have a modified resonance cannon designed for asteroid mining," Lyra replied. "It's not powerful enough to destroy the Colossus, but it might be able to weaken it." Thorne knew it was a long shot, but it was their only chance. "Prepare the cannon. We're going to get close and give it everything we've got." As the Star Wanderer moved into position, the Aurora continued to engage the Colossus, drawing its attention away from the smaller vessel. Vance knew that their shields wouldn't hold for long, but he was determined to buy Thorne as much time as possible. "Admiral, we're picking up a transmission from the Star Wanderer," Volkov reported. "They're about to fire their cannon." Vance braced himself, knowing that the next few moments would determine the fate of everyone in the nebula. The Star Wanderer fired its resonance cannon, unleashing a wave of high-frequency sonic energy that slammed into the Colossus. The monstrous vessel shuddered, its energy field flickering and weakening. "It's working," Lyra shouted. "The Colossus is destabilizing." But their victory was short-lived. The Colossus began to adapt, its energy field shifting to compensate for the sonic attack. It turned its attention towards the Star Wanderer, unleashing a barrage of energy weapons that tore through the ship's shields. "We're taking heavy damage," Thorne yelled. "We can't hold out much longer." Vance knew he had to act fast. He ordered the Aurora to move into intercept, positioning itself between the Colossus and the Star Wanderer. "All batteries, fire at will," he commanded. "We're going to make this thing pay." The Marauder joined the fray, Econ directing his crew to unleash everything they had on the Colossus. It was a desperate gamble, but he knew that if they didn't work together, they were all doomed. The combined firepower of the Aurora, the Star Wanderer, and the Marauder began to take its toll on the Colossus. Its energy field flickered erratically, and its movements became sluggish. But the Colossus was far from defeated. It unleashed a final, devastating energy blast that slammed into the Aurora, crippling its engines and knocking out its shields. Vance knew that they were on the brink of destruction. But he wasn't ready to give up. He activated the Aurora's experimental weapon, the Aurora Protocol, a last-ditch effort to stop the Colossus before it destroyed everything. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance.